And in this way, June has supported young people to develop their skills and attributes to allow them to enter the world of work. In one case, June supported a learner where English was not their first language. And I have heard, June, that now you're a bit of an expert on Google Translate. Yeah. Not only was the young person successful in gaining catering skills under June's direction, but they also went on to be awarded the Council's Modern Apprentice of the Year. Excellent. And so June also does not see disability as a barrier to young people accessing a career in catering, and has supported learners with physical disabilities by making alterations to the kitchen layout and physical equipment to ensure that they overcome their disability and gain the full experience of any able-bodied person. Finally, I'm also advised that should Ready Steady Cook make a return to our screens, that June would be well placed to present this. Looking forward to it, June. As part of the Council's wellbeing support for staff, June delivered a cooking class on how to deliver a 4-person Christmas dinner for under £25. And feedback was so good that June was asked to deliver a second course. So I can sign up for that, if that's all right, please, June. So without further ado, I would very much like to ask June to come forward once again to accept her very well-deserved Catering Manager of the Year award, and the gratitude of the Education Committee for her outstanding continuous service.
Hello.
Well done. Oh, should we switch?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. So, June, would you stay? Yeah. So thanks very much. Sorry, June, for coming along, but if you, I'd imagine you want to get back to doing your looking after the children, so please feel free to go back to school now if you like. Okay, thank you. Sorry, hold on. My PC's not up. So this next one's just sorry folks, moving on now to item 2 on the agenda. It's the SEF workstream spotlight presentation for literacy and numeracy, and I believe Janice is going to introduce it. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. The purpose of this session is to shine a light on aspects of the work currently being supported by the Department's Strategic Equity Fund, which is taking place across all our educational establishments in order to improve outcomes for all our learners. You will recall that the Department's SEF plan, Raising the Bar for All, Delivering Excellence Through Equity, identifies 3 key themes as part of the theory of change to tackle the poverty-related attainment gap: readiness to learn, the well-being of children and young people, literacy, numeracy, learning and teaching, that pedagogy for equity. In addition, leadership, parental engagement and the use of research and data to support professional learning permeates across all themes. This particular spotlight focuses on literacy and numeracy. I am delighted to welcome Rosamond Coyle-Bennett, a member of the Quality Improvement Team, along with Lucy Costick and Gillian Gourley, who are literacy PTs for the department, and Siobhan Coates, the PT numeracy, who will lead this session, this part of the session, and share some of the outstanding practice and input and impact for literacy and numeracy across our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. As Janice said, we're here to shine a light today on the literacy and numeracy workstream that's part of the wider SEF plan. You've already heard previously from some of my colleagues about the wellbeing and learning and teaching workstreams. So today we're going to focus on literacy and numeracy, taken forward by Gillian, Lucy and Siobhan. who I was told to trust that would move forward. Yes, there we go. The 4-year commitment for our SEF and PEF funding and the Care Experienced Children funding enables the Department and our schools to identify activities, approaches or resources which are clearly additional to the universal improvement plans and are carefully targeted at improving outcomes for those children and young people most impacted by poverty. We're going to use this time just now to highlight the impact of some of the key activities that you can see here and share with you how those have impacted on our children, some families and our staff. So I'm going to hand over now to Lucy and Gillian.
As part of the 2017 literacy strategy, myself and Lucy were employed by the authority as Reading Recovery teacher leaders, and we were trained at master's level at UCL in London. The prime purpose was then to allow us to train teachers up here in Reading Recovery, which is an early literacy intervention designed for children with the most complex needs in literacy around the age of 6. Now that this is so well established within the authority, we have the data to show that the gains made in Reading Recovery are sustained long term. The intervention has played a crucial role in helping to close the poverty-related attainment gap. Since 2017, we have now targeted over 450 pupils. In terms of sustained gains, in the current P4 cohort who had Reading Recovery in P2, there are no pupils off track in literacy. From the current P7 cohort, 75% are meeting or exceeding national standard in reading. Parents were recently part of a celebration of Reading Recovery and shared clips and quotes to explain how important it is to them. Many commented on the impact on attainment, as well as increased confidence in their children as learners. Their children now have a love of reading and are accessing all areas of the curriculum with confidence. From the knowledge we gained through our training, we have developed a suite of interventions based around the theories of Reading Recovery. These interventions target all aspects of literacy and are now well embedded within the authority, including the targeted schools we support through SEF. By training practitioners in these interventions, we now have over 260 practitioners able to deliver various literacy interventions to pupils who struggle with literacy. Sample data shows that these interventions are helping to raise attainment in literacy.
We also provide opportunities for practitioners to be involved in year-long collaborative learning networks. These follow an inquiry-based model where practitioners look at an area of development, implement change and monitor impact. This session, we have had 94 practitioners involved in a variety of these networks. We have also developed Daily Literacy Learning, shortened to DLL, which is a whole class approach to teaching literacy in Primary 2. Since the pilot in 2019, we have now implemented DLL in 18 of our primary schools. Sample data from 3 schools and 99 pupils shows that, on average, 79% of learners were reading below age expected levels before the programme was introduced, and after just 3 months, 63% of learners were reading at or above age expected levels. Within our role, we also provide various universal offers of professional learning in many different aspects of literacy. This year alone, we have provided training to more than 270 individuals, helping to upskill and build capacity in practitioners. Practitioners can access information on all programmes and interventions available through East Renfrewshire's Literacy Locker. In here, they can also find access to suggested professional reading on various topics, as well as links to all the relevant guidance documents and planners. From everything that we have shared today, we hope you can see that early intervention is at the heart of everything that we do. Intervening early helps us to prevent later literacy failures.
A significant proportion of my work this session has been around building capacity and confidence in practitioners, in delivering high quality learning and teaching of numeracy and mathematics. Therefore, a wide-ranging CLPL offer has been available for practitioners across all sectors. There has been a total of 671 attendees across all sessions, demonstrating a willingness to engage in developing practice from practitioners across the authority. Universal courses are available for all practitioners. Each session was offered in person at multiple points throughout the year to increase opportunities to attend, engage in professional dialogue and collaboration, and explore resources. These courses included developing numeracy-rich environments, playful maths, number talks, introduction to bar modelling, and developing mathematical mindsets. There were also 2 courses organised with external providers around financial education and problem solving and reasoning. 11 bespoke CLPL sessions were offered at request by establishments to support work based on their own requirements, including 2 cluster conference workshops. As part of the SEF work stream, I've worked alongside targeted schools, and this has involved delivering CLPL sessions to practitioners from the schools, designed and delivered to meet their individual requirements. The impact of the CLPL has been positive, some of which is detailed on the screen. Practitioner confidence and knowledge is increasing, which in turn is having a positive impact on learning engagement and achievement, and next steps as well as feedback from practitioners can also be seen on the slides. Mass recovery, or SEAL, or stages of early arithmetical learning, as it's commonly referred to, is used widely across Scotland, and its use within the context of East Renfrewshire Council was explored through a SEAL pilot project and through the use of COVID reserves funding. In August 23, we appointed a full-time class teacher on a secondment basis. Working in small groups, she supported 152 learners across primary 2 to primary 7 from 6 targeted primary schools in order to bridge the attainment gap and reduce inequalities in numeracy and mathematics. The learners who have been supported were identified through dialogue with school staff and leadership teams and analysis of assessment data to ensure that the support is appropriate and meet the needs of learners, whilst considering key priority groups to ensure equity. Our data demonstrates the significant impact this has had on learner success, and an attitudinal survey shows an increase in confidence and lower levels of maths anxiety. This sample data here is from 2 different groups of learners from 2 different year groups and schools, and demonstrates across the different learning domains in numeracy and mathematics that maths recovery has a positive impact. 6 schools were involved in a SEAL pilot as a small test of change to ascertain its impact on early level practitioner pace and progress. After the CLPL sessions, staff acknowledged that their knowledge and confidence in using the SEAL approaches and planning for next steps in early numeracy maths development had increased. All the schools who have taken forward the SEAL approaches agree that it had a positive impact on both their own practice and on learner attitude and progress. Practitioners can access the Numeracy and Maths Hub through GLOW for further support in learning, teaching and assessment of numeracy and mathematics, resources and supports to develop high quality learning experiences and professional reading and research, and other resources to support professional development. Next session, we endeavour to build on the work of this past year and keep the momentum going, and look forward to continuing to work alongside colleagues to bring joyful, meaningful maths and numeracy experiences to learners.
Excellent, great. Thank you all for that. Extremely important, obviously, the key core skills for all their young people, literacy and numeracy. Very, very good to see the work with the practitioners as well to obviously develop their expertise, and to the incredibly important thing is the intervention, obviously at the right time for and identifying the needs of the children. The first question, if you don't mind, I have is actually then there's a continuation of this. The funding still supports it for the following years. Janice?
Yeah, you'll recall that we have strategic equity funding for up to 2026. That's we don't know thereafter. However, that's why our model, and you'll remember from our plan, was always about having an exit strategy, about sustainability. So our main drive is about building the capacity of our existing workforce. So as the ladies have demonstrated today, it's about that professional learning, going in, working alongside, modelling, building that bank and suite of resources so that we're not dependent on future funding to deliver high quality literacy and numeracy experiences.
Yeah, so the existing funding that we already have, then build the capacity. Great, excellent. Sorry, Dr. Rattle.
Maybe just in a specific example there, you saw on the screen just a couple of slides ago that the COVID funding, which obviously was an investment by the council itself, recognising the importance of this area, but again you could see that money was targeted very much towards that professional learning of the staff, because we recognised it was a sort of short-term windfall in that sense, so it's very much about trying to have that legacy and sustainable model.
Excellent, great, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Sorry?
I was going to ask out for
Dorothy,
information.
yeah.
How did you decide what schools would take part in the pilot programme initially for the SEAL?
The SEAL pilot? Apologies, the SEAL pilot. It was initially schools that had actually approached and asked for support because they had knowledge of the experience in their local authorities and recognised the potential impact that it could have. So it was initially that kind of positive buy-in. and I went back to them and asked if they would like to involve. Initially it was also early levels, so it was schools that had a nursery class and a primary one who were interested as well.
Thank you, Dorothy. Janice?
However, the targeted approach is based on a range of evidence, including attainment evidence, as well as qualitative data from our quality improvement team going out and reviewing learners' experiences. So we have a selection of schools that we approach and say, performance, you need a wee bit of support. And the team, along with the quality improvement team, work with the school staff and they create a joint action plan because it's very much about ownership of the school.
Thanks, Janice. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Buchanan?
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks both for the work that you've done there. I think it highlights very much not just the need for it, but the approach that we've taken in ensuring that staff are properly trained and taking and utilising it, and not just identifying the skills gap or the need that some children may have, but then taking it forward and having the ability to do that is vital. And as has been touched on, the sustainability of it, and by making sure that staff are properly trained, both in recognition and then tackling the issues, highlights that this has been very much the right way forward. And so congratulations for getting that rolled out and for implementing that, because I think, again, it's key to what we deliver in terms of our education across the authority, and this is very much just at the starting point in ensuring that the opportunities are then there on an equal basis for all of our children. So thanks again for all the work.
Thank you, Councillor Buchanan. Councillor Campbell?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, ladies. That was really, really interesting and informative. What I would like to ask is, would it be possible to have a copy of these slides? Because there was loads of great information, but I couldn't see it, and I'd just like to study it a bit more. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Assuming that's all right. Yeah, thanks, Janice. Oh, sorry, Fiona?
I'd just like to say, I know how important it is to take parents alongside you. Did you have flip parent workshops to explain what you would like them to do with the children?
I'll come in here.
Yeah.
The schools have bespoke programmes, so where a school wants to run a family engagement element or a parental engagement element, then we can do that as well. When it's Read and Recovery, in particular, there's obviously close communication with the families so that they understand the approaches that are being taken and how it sits alongside work that may also be happening within the class, and supports them with strategies that they can work with at home. And when we're out doing reviews in different settings, I've recently been leading the literacy review across the schools where parents had Read and Recovery. They couldn't speak highly enough of the impact that it had on their children and the ability that it would allow them to access the wider curriculum and enable them really to catch up on such an important skill. I don't know if any of you want to say any more about parental opportunities. Certainly it's something that's embedded within the work that we do to make sure that families can help develop the skills that we're working with the children on. And in terms of the maths and numeracy strategy, was refreshed for 22 to 25 fairly recently, and it includes a family engagement component there. And as I said, the literacy review has just taken place, so the new strategy that takes that forward will also include adult learning who are already involved in the maths and numeracy work, and will continue to deliver with literacy as well, so that parents and families are supported in the community too.
I just asked one wee bit. Sorry, I would just also say for parents as well within literacy, we have an online platform for parents as well called the Literacy Library, which has got various leaflets and videos as well, which shows them how they can support their children with the various aspects of literacy at home as well.
Sorry, can I just ask, you're going to circulate the presentation. Is that link that you just talked about there in the presentation at all? But if not, could you include the link to that? Yeah.
The link to that is not in there, but I can add that on and send that to you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor O'Donnell.
Thanks very much. Great presentation, and I'm actually delighted with the impact of these early interventions. There's a few things that I'm really delighted with. The sustainability of the impact, that's remarkable and really welcomed. and also the exit strategy for the COVID reserves. Council responded very quickly when we saw there was an issue on that, and is delighted to see there's an exit strategy so that this is sustainable longer term. So really delighted to see that. So well done, and it's very good targeted use of those funds, and an exemplary of how to use additional cash when it's available, and how to get an exit strategy. So well done on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Any other comments or questions about the presentation? No. Well, I'd like to thank you all very much. I think you can tell it was very well received and great to see. And well, potentially future updates would be very well received also. So I'll let you all go back to your schools now. I think that's where you'd like to be. Thank you. Okay, thanks everyone. Moving on to then our final item from Janice, it's the report on early learning in childcare. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. The purpose of this report is to update members on the approaches taken to further develop early learning and childcare services across East Renfrewshire Council. The report outlines the next steps to improve the quality, flexibility, accessibility and affordability of provision and experiences for our younger children. The report sets a high-level summary of progress regarding the quality of provision, the quality of the early years workforce, the flexibility offered to residents and the accessibility across the whole council area. Appendix 1 provides further detail. A few key areas members may wish to note: the consistent picture of good, very good and excellent evaluations in terms of external inspection for our ELC settings and those who work in partnership with us by Education Scotland and the Care Inspectorate. The continued efficiency of service delivery through the maximisation of our staff capacity while still meeting the needs of children and families in terms of models of delivery, with 95% of families receiving their first choice at time of allocation. The opportunities for income maximisation while still ensuring that those who need us most are supported through our early years intervention group. The tracking of number of deferrals in line with the changes to legislation, and the many successes and few challenges as detailed in the appendix of this paper. Education Committee are asked to note and comment on the contents as outlined in the report. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you, Janice. As Janice mentioned there, obviously asked to note and comment. First of all, I'd just like to say about the paragraph 6 about the figure there in terms of in East Renfrewshire, the fact that exceeding the national standard at 88%, it really is quite substantial considering, when you look at the figure for the rest of the country. We're very grateful and very much appreciate that. So I'll open it up then to members of the Councillor Pragnell.
It's just on page 10 of the full report of the papers today on the number of children not hitting for the first time the developmental milestones, and how actually we're seeing that an issue in quintile 5 and those quintile 1 and quintile 5 are now achieving the same. Obviously you've given reasons for this, and these were the children who were between 12 and 24 months at the start of the pandemic. What more can be done to improve it? Because we've really worked really hard on quintile 1 and 2. Is it a case of just engaging parents a bit more in quintile 4 and 5 about this? Also, on the number of places we've got available for nursery provision, are we satisfied we've got enough places? Because I still hear parents saying, oh, it can still be quite difficult to get a place with for the hours they want. So, yeah, is there enough availability in the market? And also just a bit more information on the developmental milestones.
You'll see the sort of developmental milestones. I mean, we don't truly know the impact of COVID, and the Education Department is very grateful of the recent decision at Cabinet to use the investment fund to continue to support early years, and as demonstrated in the previous presentation, early intervention is the key. So by investing in our younger children, then we know that saves in money in future years. But it has sort of levelled off, but we are seeing a pattern with particular milestones, and it's usually social and communication. So we are working very closely with our colleagues in health to make sure that the support we put in it moves that progress alongside. So remember, this is a snapshot at a particular time, but is there a particular pattern? Yes, it's about social and communication needs as opposed to the other developmental milestones. And I've sat here previously and talked about it being gross and fine motor skills, about children not getting out to play, but we would say that that trend is about social and communication skills, whether that is about that aspect of isolation, lockdown, or whether that is something else. We work closely with our colleagues in, as I say, in health visiting team to make sure that no matter what the child's needs developmentally, we are prepared to meet that need, and that's what that programme that the council has is greatly received, that they've given back in to continue. As for places, I don't know, do you want to pick that up, Graham?
Yeah, absolutely happy to come in there. I mean, obviously you'll note, Councillor Bradnell, we offer a range of different models and, you know, across our own settings, but also we do work closely with our fund providers as well, who provide a lot of places for our families as well, that they have that choice. I think it's important, we also have to kind of carefully manage these places. You know, it's about trying to maximise the number of children we can accommodate, whilst also making it affordable and obviously within the budget and things we've got. I mean, I would note there are obviously always going to be settings where, unfortunately, the demand will outstrip the supply. Some of the settings can be quite small, and you know, we have to kind of manage that carefully. Although I would note, I think for the period this kind of paper covers, you know, 95% of applications got their first choice of setting. So you know, that is a really strong figure, and absolutely we will always try and work with the families where that's maybe not the case, and try and see what we can provide. I suppose as well, it's just noted in the report that we do now offer a range of different sort of additional models, so the add-on hours, early access and things, which has been very well received and kind of helped build on some of that flexibility that maybe in the past we've not been able to fully make available. So yeah, I appreciate there is always going to be the kind of odd cases here and there, but certainly we try our best to, you know, the team work very hard to consider all applications and what circumstances and things we can take into account to try and support families with that.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Buchanan.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just to say, a fantastic report. I think it highlights that the right decision was taken to continue with our original timetable in terms of ELC, rather than acknowledging the delay that had been put in because of the pandemic. So I think we see the results of that by going out and by rolling it out to our original timetable has certainly assisted. You know, we note the issues that we're starting to see in terms of COVID and the potential impact of it, and it's good to see that we've got that data and we're attempting to address that, and hopefully we'll continue in that vein and making sure that we tackle that. Can also ask, in terms of our funded providers, are we in a position, I know that there are ongoing issues in some of it, that we're ensuring that they are meeting all of the standards, and indeed for the staff in our funded providers and our partnership agencies, that they are receiving the real living wage, etc., and that's all being passed on and put through. Yeah, great to know. And I think just the other aspect is, obviously there continues to be, you know, huge demand for our services. And I note some of the issues in terms of the deferral and starting P1 will have had an impact on the spaces available, and indeed potentially an impact then in the enrolment of those children into P1, albeit they'll be a bit older by that time. Is that having any marked effect as yet?
Firstly, going back to your original point, if you look at page 4, you'll see that our funded providers are performing well, and I think that is the sustainable rate paper that was approved at last committee shows that we are paying that rate, but it's also all the other things that we do to support that free professional learning, that access to departmental staff, and we take our role as the guarantors of quality very seriously. In terms of the deferral, we are monitoring it very closely. We know from previously when we introduced 600 hours, when we introduced 11, people were slow uptake, but the minute people realise that they have got an entitlement to this, then it tends to catch on. So we are monitoring it very closely from an early years position in places, and we're working very closely with Joe, who oversees the P1 places, to make sure. But you'll see from that it's, although it's increased, it's not significant at this stage, but it's something that we certainly need to keep an eye on. I don't know if you've got anything to add, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of school admissions for primary P1 applications, obviously with the introduction of the new legislation and the increase in the deferrals, what you see there is probably a first-year drop-off in the reduction of P1 intake, but then in future years that then equalise itself out, because the children who had deferred previously in that increase then move into the primary 1 sector in the following year. And as Janice said, I think it's primarily a case of continuing to monitor the demand for increasing deferrals given the change in the legislation. I know that's detailed within the paper, and you can see particularly in one of the charts with the age range on the date of birth from August through to December, and those children who were not legally entitled to fully funded places previously now being so, and you can see how that's increased over years. And I suspect we will see that to increase in future years as it becomes more common and more people become interested in that. And again, we'll just continue to monitor that on an ongoing basis. But I think primarily what we've seen in the first instance is that 1 year where there was a decrease in the entry to P1 through an increase in deferrals, but therefore moving forward that will tend to equalise itself out with the increase in roll coming in the following year at P1.
No, it's good to know that we're keeping an eye, because I think one of the potential risks is that if we have a lot of our own parents deferring, that it creates the opportunity, I suppose, in some respects, for placing requests to increase, and that creates an anomaly in the system then that we then have all the way through, which might be a potential issue.
Yeah, and going back to Councillor Pragnall's, it also, if we have more places taken up in early years, we may see a reduction in that 95% for choice of parents coming in.
I think the other thing that we're keeping an eye on, Councillor Buchanan, is the impact on the sort of pedagogical approaches in terms of sort of primary 1, and then those children as they move through. You've now got quite a significant spread of ages within those primary 1 classes that presents a challenge in terms of meeting needs. So there's that work around upskilling our staff so that they're able to do that as effectively as possible. But I think we do need to keep an eye on that in terms of the potentially almost the unintended consequences of this policy being adopted at a national level. And there's some interesting, we've continued to invest in that sort of research approach. Janice mentioned previously that there's a report by the West Partnership that's just about finalised at the moment on 1140 hours. So we'd be happy to bring that back to Education Committee, because I do think there's some, as you saw with the reading recovery, it's important that you look at the sustained rollout of some of these things and try and gather that evidence. So we'd be happy to bring that back.
Well, thanks for that, Dr. Hatter. I think because I think it's about those unintended consequences that we knew at the time when the deferrals issue was being raised and what the potential issues might be. So I guess it's good that we're keeping an eye on that to ensure that we can manage any impact that arises. And out with that, obviously, as a fantastic report to show that our ELC is working well, and that we're also working, it ties in very much with literacy and numeracy, it ties in with our health issues, showing that holistic approach to ensure that we're giving every child the appropriate and the right start that everyone deserves. So thanks for that.
Sorry, thank you, Councillor Buchanan. So look forward to seeing the report coming to the future, the West Partnership report about 1140. Fiona.
There was just something that interested me. It's on page 6 and it's point 19. And it was the bit that says others being allocated suitable school age provision. The people who had applied for deferral, but 8 applications were made. 1 was granted and the others were given suitable school age provision. I wondered if that was like nurture groups or what kind of provision would be offered.
Sometimes parents' request for deferral is around additional support needs or barriers to learning. So as you suggest, sometimes sit with the parents saying, would another year in early years meet their needs, or would another type of provision be best? So we work very closely with our psychology team, and we sit with parents, because ultimately it is their decision, but we talk about, it's a very child-centred approach, about what would actually be the best next step, because we are very, very keen that all our children transition into school. I mean, they have a right to move through education, the same as everyone else, but that tends to be specific barriers.
Can I ask just if there are, how many nurture groups there are in East Rain?
So we have a sort of centralised enhanced nurture provision that sits within Carlabar Primary School, and primary age children across the authority can access that with some specialised teachers. It would then be devolved to individual schools in terms of whether they chose to have a nurture provision. But what I would say is all of our schools have received professional learning around nurturing approaches. And really, I suppose nurturing approaches is more than just having a nurture room. You should be able to see those nurturing principles in every classroom, in every relationship within a school. So, but a number of our schools do also have nurture provisions that they use to support children and young people, and that's supported again through the educational psychology team, and there is a nurture network with regular meetings throughout the year to support staff in schools led by the EdSite team.
Thanks, Siobhan. Fiona, yeah, happy with that? Yeah, thank you. Councillor O'Donnell?
I also really welcome this report. A few things to note and a few questions. Really pleased to see the variety of models that we're offering and the popularity of those different offerings beyond the core offerings. So that really is reflective of the needs of the parents in the community. So I really appreciate that, and I'm sure there's a lot of work to organise so many different models, but that seems to be very popular and working well. So well done on that. One question on the deferrals, and it's really about the funding. Can you just confirm that if there is a deferral, there's no added pressure onto education budgets, and that it's covered by government money? Maybe pick that one up first.
The funding model for early years has changed in recently, so there is not, it's one sort of body of money for early years, and at the moment it's meeting the needs, but it's back to that, monitoring it carefully.
Maybe if I just add, so I suppose it's a bit like now they've shifted it so that there's an allocation that takes account of the numbers that you have, a bit like primary. So ultimately now, my understanding, we would need to check that with Margaret. I think, is it 50% of it is based on that, and then the remaining part of the early years money is just is based on other factors, a bit like GAE.
So just to be clear, deferrals are taken into account or not taken into account when funding is agreed?
It's just one budget at the moment for the children that attend, so it doesn't drill down to if it's a deferred year or not. It's just our early years budget, so no. So
it's a budget pressure for us then? Or?
Potentially, but at the moment we're obviously monitoring it.
Perfect.
I think it would maybe become a pressure if we need more places. And as we've explained, we're keeping an eye on that.
Thank you for that. Just looking at some of the charts in the appendix, and Councillor Pragnell picked up on this one as well, which was chart 1, the developmental milestones. So that looks really great progress on Q1, quintile 1 and quintile 2, very much now in line with quintile 4 and 5. But quintile 3 looks quite odd. It was 87, has gone down to 70, so it looks a bit of an anomaly. I don't know if you can add a little bit of colour on that.
I think the difficulty with this chart is it only shows 2 years rather than a longer period, so that could be that particular cohort at that particular time, but I'm happy to look in at a longer period. What we find is that I mean, quintile 3, 4 and 5 normally are on a par, but I can look into that for you.
And then the final question really is about Chart 2, the baseline results, raw scores. Again, remarkably consistent across all 5 quintiles. Now, I think that is brilliant news, just like that confirmed, because that suggests to me that if we're getting people into primary 1 on a level playing field, that we've got every chance of keeping it that way going forward. Is that fair understanding of the position?
Yes, I think when we've looked at it a wee bit closely, the children who access it from age 2 have made sort of a difference, but it's sort of levelled off that children are coming in. However, that is the actual overall score. There'll still be some children who maybe need some additional support.
Maybe just for total clarity on that one, so the chart there is the 5-year historical trend, which is, as Janice is saying, is really level. So it's saying, you know, for literacy, it's gone from 59% to 60%, but you've got the 5 years there of the data, and then for numeracy, 59 to 60. And that's broadly what we expected, because I suppose that early years experience should be a holistic one in terms of the development of the skills. Janice has already referred to some of those social, emotional, the physical ones. You could essentially accelerate children's literacy and numeracy development, but that would be inappropriate in terms of that child development. But in terms of your question as well, Councillor O'Donnell, paragraph 7 gives a little bit more detail that we still have that persistent gap in terms of literacy and numeracy. 8 points for between quintile 1 and quintile 5 in terms of the baseline, and that goes back, I suppose, to some of that work that you saw earlier in terms of that literacy and numeracy, and then also the reference Janice made earlier to that investment fund that we took through Cabinet last week to, you know, essentially try and continue to upskill our practitioners, our early years staff, to make sure that we can address that as much as possible.
If I can just come back, I now realise I've misinterpreted that chart completely. I thought it was Q1 to Q5 for both years rather than it being historical, so I misunderstood that chart, but points taken. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Any other questions or comments? There was a couple of things actually I'd like to ask about, and one of them in particular that caught my eye was about income generation and targets in regards to the context of that. If you could give more explanation around it, but the 260,000 and in total it comes up to £393,000. It sounds quite a significant amount of money, but it talks about it being a target, and it sounds quite significant, but I believe there's more to it. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely happy to come in there. I mean, certainly you built within our kind of budget, I suppose, is a £700,000 annual income target for early years. So that is money I suppose we have to achieve, otherwise that would have to come out of somewhere else. So what we've included here is there's about £400,000, as you've noted, Councillor, that we have generated through our sort of additional income we build around statutory entitlement. So that's children aged 3 to 5. But in addition to that, which isn't included here, there is approximately about £300,000 that we bring in for our under 3 provision. So that's, you know, babies and sort of 1 and 2 year olds who don't have that statutory entitlement, and families choosing to purchase those hours as well. So yeah, we are on course, I believe. I think over the last year we have met that income target, which has been great. I think we, having introduced it, recognised it was very challenging. It was a sort of ambitious one, but certainly through the various things that we've outlined here in the report, we have been able to meet that. So that's been, you know, really, really welcome, and a really good job of our nurseries in terms of being able to promote that and you know, sell those extra hours, which benefit families as well as also generating that income for the council.
Excellent, thanks. So yeah, it's something within the overall provision that's taken into account. My final question, with regards to external, it mentions out with the area where people are using our early learning and childcare facilities. I don't believe it has a consequence. Is it parents in the hope that they potentially can then do a placement request into the primary school after being at one of our nurseries, I don't think it has an impact, but just the consequences of that.
We don't see a pattern in that way. It tends to be our cross-boundary. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about,
yes,
our cross-boundary. So it tends to be that we have more children who access early years out with East Renfrewshire than necessarily inside, and that's mainly in the city centre. And it's to do with parents' work patterns. So parents are travelling to work, to start work at a particular time. And I know, for example, in the hospital and the universities, they have their own nursery provision. So they would apply for their children to attend there and apply for us that funding. And we have a cross-boundary protocol with the West Partnership. However, that is something that we will revisit as the funding model changes to make sure that it's efficient for both our parents accessing that place, but it's also efficient in terms of our budget.
Yeah, I think it mentions that it's under discussion. Yeah. Glad you mentioned that. But did it say that was so? In terms of cost for us, is there a net positive or negative in terms of?
Well, it's the same as funding any child. So whether funding in a partner provider in our local authority or with, if parents have that choice to access funded provision, then with funding falls the child, we cannot decline that request. So parents ask for their funding to be paid to a particular provider. For us, it doesn't really matter where it is. All it means is a sort of administration situation where, rather than us paying directly to provider, we pay to another council, who then pay to that provider. However, we do ensure that they meet the national standard and make sure that the local authorities play their role as guarantors of quality, because at the end of the day, we need a reassurance that it's high quality experiences that all East Renfrewshire residents receive, whether it's within East Ren or out with.
Great, thanks, Janice. I think that key term, I heard it a couple of times now, the guarantors of quality, is obviously an important role for us. If there's any other questions or comments with regard to the paper? No? Kate, sorry, Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Chair. It's just out of interest. Friedrich Fröbel, because this is mentioned in two of the paragraphs, and the Fröbelian practice, and this is obviously what is being aspired to. How long has this been on the go? Who is Friedrich Fröbel? I mean, is he sort of as Konstantin Stanislavski is to the acting profession? Is he some sort of guru? How long does this practice go back? It's just the name came out at me, and the fact that it's sort of participating in the Fröbelian Futures Leadership Programme, and do it says 2 practitioners from East Ren have benefited this year from this practice. Do we pay for that, for them to be trained in this Fröbelian futures thing? I'm just interested. Can you tell me?
Absolutely. It's been about... Frederick left us about 400 years ago, so it's been... Yes. And when I was at university, we called him Fröbel, but it's Fröbelian now. So it was quite often for... historically, your infant mistress that we moved away would have the Fröbel, and the Fröbel was that knowing how to meet children's interests and needs and let them lead their learning in that sort of in care with the environment. And Frederick Fröbel was German, and he introduced a phase of learning that I think you will be very familiar with. He called it kindergarten. And he was the person who identified the kindergarten stage. So it is it's very much cased on children learning with the environment around them. It's very much about using the space, children leading their learning, that natural curiosity, that discovery, that sense of joy, that sense of wonder, rather than a more structured approach. So it's something that we've worked in partnership with other local authorities to have a cohort that studies with Edinburgh University. Previously, we funded that. Now we subsidise it, but it comes from schools' budgets, and it is open to our early years, right through from nursery to early stages of primary, for that continuity of learning and that pedagogical approach that Mark referred to earlier in terms of making sure that children's development needs are met no matter whether they're 4 or 6 in a primary 1 class, which is what we now have.
Thanks very much. That's interesting. I'm surprised you say 400 years. That's very interesting. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Campbell, and I'm very glad I didn't have to pronounce that word. Thank you. And on that very interesting note, if there's any other comments or questions, I don't believe so. Well, I think we've noted and commented on the paper, and that's the final item. And so I'll bring the meeting to a close. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the summer.